Good evening. You're watching The Big Story with Haryanto Daman. I'm Olivia Quay. Subscribe to the Straits Times channel so you never miss a single episode.
Emeritus Senior Minister Goh Chok Tong is retiring from politics after 44 years as an MP. He announced this in a letter to Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong yesterday. PM Lee has accepted Mr. Goh's decision for a lifetime of distinguished service in a reply today.
The 79-year-old Mr. Goh was first elected to Parliament as an MP for Marine Parade in 1976. The former Prime Minister has recommended Dr. Tan See Leng to take his place. Dr. Tan has been understudying Mr. Goh for nearly 2 years and was unveiled as the new PAP candidate this morning.
Meanwhile, former Workers' Party chief Low Thia Khiang as well as party stalwarts Chen and Huat will not be contesting the general election on July 10th. Party chief Pritam Singh said during a press conference that the WP leadership came to this collective decision with the three men some time ago when they shared their wishes to step down at the end of their term. Mr. Chen and Mr. Lau will be replaced by Mr. Gerald Giam and Mr. Leon Pereira to contest in Aljunied.
News editor Zakir Hussain and foreign editor Jeremy Au Yong joins us now. Zakir, let's start with you. What's your reaction to ESM Goh's announcement? Did it come as a surprise?
It didn't come as a surprise. I think this had long been one of the anticipated big announcements ahead of nomination day. And leadership renewals being a constant tradition of the PAP at every election. One hint that this could be coming soon was when Mr. Goh's successor at Marine Parade, Dr. Tan See Leng, was introduced as a PAP candidate this morning. And both men actually have been busy walking the ground, and I think ESM Goh had been dropping hints with residents as well as on Facebook over the past few days about his imminent announcement.
The PAP team in Marine Parade GRC before Parliament was dissolved was made up of Mr. Goh, Speaker Tan Chuan Jin, Edwin Tong, Fatima Latif and Seah Kian Peng. Do you expect a further shake-up to this lineup besides Mr. Goh retiring and Dr. Tan See Leng possibly joining?
I think there'll be one more change in Marine Parade GRC. Mr. Fahmi Aliman was introduced as a candidate for the PAP on Wednesday. And he's been actively walking the ground in Geylang Serai Ward, where Dr. Fatima has been MP for the past 3 terms. Again, many of the retiring MPs have yet to make their announcements formally, and I think this is expected in the coming days when the party launches its manifesto and announces its new lineup of MPs. And I think this is an announcement to watch. But at the same time, I think you'll see Mr. Tan Chuan Jin as well as Mr. Edwin Tong continuing to helm the team in Marine Parade.
Well, there was quite a major shake-up over at WP as well. At the same time, the party said it will contest 4 GRCs and 2 SMCs. Jeremy, what position is WP in now, given that it'll be missing 3 familiar faces?
Yeah, so today was really quite the end of an era. I think the Workers' Party has been synonymous with Mr. Lau for a very long time. He was their party chief for 17 years. He is the oldest or the longest running opposition MP in Parliament, haven't been elected since 1991. And the other two, Mr. Chen and Mr. Peng Huat, are quite notable party members in their own rights. Chen was the WP's star catch in 2011, and Mr. Peng was Mr. Lau's chosen successor in Hougang, and he has won 2 consecutive elections there. So what we're looking at really is the WP has 6 MPs now, 3 of them are retiring. That is quite a change for any one party to take, and that one of them is Mr. Low Thia Khiang. That's even bigger. So the party chief, Mr. Pritam Singh, did talk about how they were doing this for renewal. I mean, he said the 3 did come to this decision collectively with the party, and it was anchored on 3 things really. 1, broadening the leadership base of the party. 2, making sure these younger leaders still had mentors as they were learning how to lead. And the third one he said was that the party needs to change, needs to renew so it can continue to be relevant. Still, like I said, this is a lot for one party, a lot of change for one party to take at one time, and I think we can see some of the effects in that. The WP is fielding a smaller slate this year, just 21 candidates in 6 seats compared to 28 candidates in 10 constituencies the last time.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Jeremy and Zakir, for coming on to speak with us. We've been speaking to the Straits Times news editor, Zakir Hussain. We'll be chatting with foreign editor Jeremy Au Yong later in the show.
Moving on, the People's Action Party has introduced another 11 new faces today for the upcoming general election on July the 10th. This comes after 8 new candidates were introduced yesterday at the party's new Upper Changi Road headquarters. Multimedia journalist Dylan Ang has more.
Deputy Prime Minister Heng Swee Keat announced another batch of new People's Action Party candidates this morning at the party's headquarters. The 4 new faces he introduced are the most senior crop of candidates so far and include former high-ranking civil and public servants. They are Dr. Tan See Leng, former Parkway Holdings Group Chief Executive, who is the oldest candidate so far at 55 years old. Ms. Ng Ling Ling, former Community Chest Managing Director. Mr. Tan Kiat Hao, former Infocom Media Development Authority Chief Executive. And Mr. Zulkarnain Abdul Rahim, a partner at Dentons, Roddick and Davidson. Mr. Heng, the PAP's first Secretary General, said candidate selection is an ongoing process. Some qualities the party looks out for include the candidate's willingness to serve and their track record.
Since the last election, we have always had, we always reach out to people from all segments of our society. What we hope to have is team that is sufficiently diverse for us to reach out to all Singaporeans from different segments of our society.
Minister for the Environment and Water Resources Masagos Zulkifli also unveiled another 4 candidates, while Minister for Culture, Community and Youth Grace Fu announced another 3. They are Mr. Eric Chua Swee Leong, former Director of the SG Secure Programme Office, Dr. Wan Rizal Wan Zakaria, who is a Senior Lecturer in Sports and Exercise Science at Republic Polytechnic, Ms. Yeo Wan Ling, the Chief Executive of Social Enterprise Caregiver Asia, Mr. Alvin Tan Sheng Hui, who is the Head of Public Policy and Economics at LinkedIn, Mr. Raymond Lai Hong Yip, Managing Partner at Union Law, Mr. Derek Goh Soon Hee, Managing Director and Head of Group Audit at DBS Bank, and Ms. Po Lee San, Vice President for Terminal 5 Planning at Changi Airport Group.
The Singaporeans' First Party has been dissolved, narrowing the field of opposition parties looking to contest the upcoming GE to 11. Secretary General Tan Jee Say said on Facebook today that the Central Executive Committee decided to dissolve the party as it believes a strong opposition is best achieved with consolidation. Mr. Tan founded Sing First in 2014.
The Reform Party is set to take on the People's Action Party led by Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong in Ang Mo Kio. RP's chairman Andy Chu told reporters at a walkabout at Ang Mo Kio Central Market that the party has done its groundwork in the GRC since 2011. He added it's not about the candidates who are returning to serve, but a party that's still around to serve Singaporeans. In 2011, the team pitched themselves as Dragon Slayers as they were up against PM Lee's heavyweight team. In 2015, RP's slate led by lawyer M. Ravi denied it was a suicide squad and called itself a team to be reckoned with. RP lost both times against the PAP, which has maintained its grip on the constituency since 1991.
Meanwhile, RP Secretary General Kenneth Jeyaretnam is serving a 14-day stay-home notice after returning from the UK. Mr. Chu told ST that Mr. Jeyaretnam has written to the authorities to seek a shorter notice period. Since nomination day is on June 30th, Mr. Jeyaretnam would not have completed his 14-day notice by that date. Meanwhile, the People's Power Party Secretary General Goh Meng Seng confirmed today that he will contest McPherson SMC. He's expected to face off against PAP's Tin Pei Ling. Ms. Tin was first elected in 2011 and won a three-cornered fight for McPherson in 2015, garnering 65.6% of the vote. PPP had announced plans to field candidates in the Radin Mas and McPherson GRCs after other opposition parties backed out from the SMCs.
The Workers' Party introduced 4 candidates for the coming general election via virtual press conference today. 2 of them are first-time candidates.
Mr. Louis Chua, who works as a research analyst at international investment banks, and Mr. Muhammad Azhar Abdul Latif, who's a gig economy worker.
Ms. Nicole Sia is a former National Solidarity Party candidate who ran in the 2011 general election. She is currently an associate director of a multinational marketing firm. Mr. Yi Zhenjong contested in Joo Chiat SMC in 2011, garnering 48.99% of the vote.
Secretary General Pritam Singh said the party will be contesting 4 GRCs and 2 SMCs. They will defend their seats in Aljunied GRC and Hougang SMC and contest Marine Parade GRC, Sengkang GRC, East Coast GRC and Punggol West SMC.
Meanwhile, the Progress Singapore Party also unveiled 5 new candidates today, including 2 retired Singapore Armed Forces officers. The party has introduced 70 new faces so far for GE 2020.
The 2 military men are former Deputy Brigade Commander Michael Chua, who's the PSP's organizing secretary and was spotted in party activities in Tanjong Pagar, as well as Mr. Nadaraja Loganathan, who retired from the military in 2009 as a lieutenant colonel. He's expected to be in the party's A team in West Coast GRC.
The other 3 candidates are lawyer Wendy Low, also believed to run in Tanjong Pagar, Customer Service Manager Damien Tay, who's been seen on walkabouts in Nee Soon GRC, and former publisher of the independent Singapore website Kumaran Pillay. He confirmed he'll be contesting the newly carved out Kebun Baru SMC.
Let's welcome back foreign editor Jeremy Au Yong, who's one of the editors leading the Straits Times GE coverage. Jeremy, we just saw the new candidates unveiled today by PAP, WP and PSP. Who stood out for you?
Yeah, well, as we could see from the segment, there really were a lot of candidates that were announced today, and many of them are notable. So, but it would be too long. It will take too long for me to go through all of them or do them any justice. So I will just pick 3. I'll pick 2 from the PAP and one from the opposition. So the first one is Dr. Tan See Leng, which at 55, one of the older ones that the PAP has announced today. I'm picking him because historically, this is the type of candidate that is said that PAP often struggles the most to attract into politics. These are people who have been very successful in the private sector. They hold a high-ranking post in the private sector, and most of them have, in the past, generally not wanted to join politics, but here we have Dr. Tan See Leng. The second one from the PAP is Mr. Tan Kiat Hao, who was the former CEO of the IMDA. I'm picking him because he, based on his CV and his background, he looks like one of those that, if elected into parliament, has a very high chance of actually being chosen to be an office holder. From the WP today, the WP, they introduced 4, 2 of them we had seen before and 2 are new. So of the new one, I'm picking Muhammad Azhar Abdul Latif. He has quite an interesting story, and so he was disabled in an accident in 2014, I believe, and now he's training to be a para-athlete. So to my memory, I cannot think of another time where we had a person with a disability who was running as a candidate in the general election.
Jeremy, the Constitution now guarantees that there will be at least 12 opposition MPs in Parliament. Non-constituency MPs will also have full voting rights. Is that a strong enough argument to counter the opposition party's calls for greater representation in Parliament?
Yeah, I agree that's a tough one. I think this is one that maybe the voters will have to answer. This NCMP scheme has been the subject of much debate between the PAP and the opposition for a long time, and I think we've heard generally where they stand now. So, on the one hand, NCMPs do have all the voting rights that an ordinary MP has. So one would argue that this should satiate some of the need for opposition voices. On the other hand, as many opposition leaders will point out, that a NCMP, a non-constituency MP, by definition, does not have a constituency, and this actually is a severe handicap that they do not have. Not having the backing of a grassroots has somewhat of an impact on your ability to expand on your standing in Parliament.
Well, many thanks for joining us, Jeremy. We've been speaking to Jeremy Au Yong, who's part of the election coverage team at the Straits Times.
Head to our GE 2020 microsite for all the news leading up to polling day on July 10th.
Now on to the latest on the COVID-19 situation in Singapore. The Health Ministry confirmed 113 new COVID-19 cases today. 5 of them are community cases. 1 is Singaporean and the other 4 are work pass holders.
The vast majority of the remaining cases are migrant workers living in dormitories. Singapore's count is now over 42,700. More details will be announced later.
Singapore residents, meanwhile, can each get 2 free reusable antimicrobial masks from Monday. They can collect the masks from some 1,200 vending machines at bus interchanges, community clubs and residents' committee centres from Monday 10 a.m. to 11:59 p.m. on July 12th. To collect the masks, you need to scan the barcode of your NRIC or any government-issued identification at the vending machines. You can collect the kits on behalf of others by bringing along their identifications.
7 people were fined today over their involvement in an incident last month where groups of people were seen gathering at Robertson Quay. Each one pleaded guilty to 1 count of breaching circuit breaker measures by meeting at least 1 person from a different household for chatting and drinks on May 16th. 4 of them were each fined $9,000, while the other 3 were each fined $8,000.
And budget carrier Jetstar Asia is cutting a quarter of its Singapore-based workforce next month. Up to 180 people across its entire business are expected to be retrenched, even as most of the airline's remaining employees will stay furloughed until the end of the year. 5 Airbus A320s will also be retired, reducing the fleet to 13 planes.
Places of worship are taking a cautious approach in resuming mass prayers and services, even though they are allowed to do so from tomorrow. To reopen, they have to submit a safe management plan with provisions for safe entry, have no more than 50 worshippers per session and implement temperature screening. I'm now joined by journalist Shabana Begum to discuss this further. Shabana, you spoke to several religious groups for your story. Why are they taking things slow?
The religious organizations did not share their concerns, but it seems that they are trying to strike a balance between ensuring visitors' safety and also to take into account that many devotees and worshippers are eager to return to mass prayers at their places of worship. But at the same time, they need to ensure that the places are completely safe with safe management procedures abided. So they are not in a hurry to open on June 26th. For instance, because in many parts of the world and also in Singapore, mass gatherings and places of worship have become COVID-19 clusters. As we know, an early cluster in Singapore was discovered at the Grace Assembly of God Church, including 2 other churches. And an example overseas would be in February, where South Korea saw its COVID-19 cases surge within days from 100 to 600, with more than half linked to a church in one of South Korea's cities. So the Catholic churches here right now are being very cautious about safety management, and they understand that there could be an issue of church hopping that could prevent the spread, that could cause the spread of virus across the churches to spread. So the Catholic churches, which will open from next month gradually, require Catholics to register online with just 1 church and stick to that church for now.
Right. Now, Shabana, that said, what are some of the things that places of worship are doing to adhere to the guidelines set out by the Ministry of Culture, Community and Youth?
Okay. In addition to what the Catholic Church has announced. The basic thing all houses of worship have to abide by is that there should be no more than 50 persons in a worship service or a congregation service. And MCCY has stressed that when congregational and other worship services are not held, there can only be up to 50 persons in the place of worship for all permitted activities such as religious rites and religious classes. And there are some, for instance, the Hindu Endowments Board is still stressing and emphasizing and encouraging its devotees to attend morning and evening prayers through the daily live stream instead of coming down to the 4 temples. So they are still keeping in place the various online live streaming sessions so that not many people would flock over to the temples and churches or mosques.
Right. Of course, keeping these places of worship safe take two hands, right? One on the part of the places of worship as well as on the part of worshippers. Now, on the part of worshippers, what can they do to keep themselves safe when visiting these places, be it for mass or private prayers?
I think the basics would be to ensure safe distancing with each other, and they are allowed to come in groups of 5, and if they come in a group they should stick together and be about 1 to 2 meters away from the rest of the groups. And I think from interviewing the various individuals yesterday on the ground, I feel that one particular challenge could be the fact that various places of worships like mosques and churches have known to be places that are for fellowship, and people are used to sticking around at the end of a service to chat and to talk to one another, to spend some time together. But that for now will have to cease, as MCCY has said, because all the congregants and worshippers will have to leave the premises immediately after the services. So I think that is something, having to leave that fellowship part behind and not be able to talk to other friends from other groups, or might be a bit of a challenge for some of the congregants, and something that they have to get used to because of the current situation.
Right, well said, Shabana. Thank you so much for coming on to speak with us. That was journalist Shabana Begum speaking on the resumption of mass prayers at places of worship here from tomorrow.
Here's a quick look at the top global headlines. The International Monetary Fund has warned that the global economy faces an even deeper downturn than it previously projected. In an update to its World Economic Outlook, the IMF said it expected the global economy to shrink 4.9% this year, a sharper contraction than the 3% it predicted in April. This is because the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic are such that even as countries begin to reopen their economies, it is increasingly evident that the recovery will be protracted. Mass job cuts and business closures also mean that the world economy will take much longer to recover than many hoped.
Scientists have discovered a breakthrough in treating Parkinson's disease and other degenerative illnesses such as Alzheimer's. A team of US and China-based researchers used genome editing to convert one type of brain cell in mice into functioning neurons, the cells that communicate with others in the brain. Motor defects such as uncontrollable shaking associated with Parkinson's are largely caused by the loss of dopamine-emitting neurons. The cell conversion was found to slow the loss of dopamine and restore motor function in injured mice. Worldwide, about 7% of people over 65 suffer from Alzheimer's or some form of dementia. More than 10 million people live with Parkinson's.
The number of new coronavirus infections in the United States is approaching record daily levels, with more than 35,900 cases recorded in the past 24 hours. The total number of cases in the U.S. is close to 2.4 million, and nearly half of the 50 U.S. states have seen an increase in infections over the past 2 weeks. With the increase, New York, New Jersey and Connecticut have said that people traveling from states with rising virus cases will be asked to go into quarantine for 14 days. New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy said the three states had been through hell and back and did not want another round of infections. Those are our top stories for today. Bookmark our GE 2020 microsite to follow our live blog and get all the latest election news.
And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel by hitting the red button below. Once again, I'm Haryanto Dimana with Olivia Quay. Join us tomorrow for more stories on A Big Story.